Hi, I'm Mike Gasowitz, CEO of TriCert Financial Group. Welcome to the next episode of our series we're calling Echoes, all about legacy planning. This episode is all about ensuring your legacy lives on. We've got two guests today, a special guest, Brad Giroux, who is an advisor and financial planner at one of our partner CPA firms. Welcome, Brad.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
And also joining us is Gord, our lead of our financial planning team. Welcome, Gord.
Good to be back, Mike.
Good to have you guys on. So let's get at it. So first question, how do you make sure, your wishes get done, that your legacy lives on? Why don't we start with you, Brad?
Sure. I think when you start thinking about legacy planning, the first thing you have to do is identify what you want your legacy to be. Whether it's a personal legacy, a business legacy, maybe it's a financial legacy, or even a legacy of your values that you want to leave to your next of kin. I think you have to have a written plan, a strategy maybe that outlines your legacy goals for each of those areas. And you need to share those plans, I think, with those that you wish to impact with these legacies. It's a hard thing to do sometimes to come out of your shell and share your thoughts on what you want your legacy to be once you're gone. But I think that's a very important part of the process. So once you've done that, I think, if you can discuss those with your team of professionals, whether it be your accountant, lawyer, financial planner, maybe your insurance advisor, your portfolio manager, and there may be others involved as well. And then draft an appropriate documents to ensure that your legacy is passed along as you intend it to be. Documents such as your will and trust, and maybe shareholders agreements or buy-sell agreements, or any number of other appropriate documents. And then you have to make sure that those documents are secure and available when the time is right. And then, of course, reviewing your planning and strategies and the legacies that you've laid out, reviewing them on a regular basis, just in case you've changed your mind. As time will do from time to time.
Sounds like a lot, but obviously it's complex. This isn't trivial. A legacy isn't necessarily trivial, so it makes sense that there's a lot to do. Gord, anything to add?
Yeah, I think Brad has really nailed it. A lot of people tend to think of the legacy as being the physical assets that you pass on to the next generation. And for some people, it may be bigger than that. I had one client that told me that they wanted their name on the building at their university that they graduated on. That's not the norm. I think most people tend to think of, closer to home, the immediate family, maybe some special charities that they want to donate to. But it's really important to, first of all, get it down on paper and get it down clearly, to make sure that you have the best chance of what your intentions are actually being followed through on. A lot of times, a will can be a cookie cutter thing that a lawyer puts together, and that's great. But if there are more complexities in your situation and you want to make sure that your wishes are clear, more clarity, more personalization, so there's no ambiguity left in your estate documents.
So we've talked about a lot of planning, a lot of documentation. So in terms of, making sure it gets done easily. And so what does that mean? I mean, we know you guys live the dream every day in terms of sadly, there are situations that don't unfold as easily or as clean as you'd like it. What can be done to try and ease that? Is there other things that can be done other than just the documentation?
I think for me, communication is huge. At the very basic level, we see a lot of couples come in and one spouse will kind of be in charge, for lack of a better term, of the financial side of things, and the other spouse is left in the dark, either by choice or just by default. And it can be very challenging if you've got your spouse named as your executor and they don't have a clue what's going on. So communicating to let them know what assets you have, what liabilities you have. Talk about what your goals are when the estate passes on to future generations. And make sure that they know the basics. Where do I find the life insurance policies? Where are the originals of the wills kept? And get that so that you're on as much of an even playing field and a common understanding as possible. As your situation gets more complex, you have the same kind of discussions, but you're bringing in your financial planner, your advisor, your accountant, your lawyer. Maybe your situation is complex enough that you want to make sure that you've got an outside party as your executor. If it's a complicated business, somebody having experience in that business and that knowledge can help them guide a surviving spouse through a situation, maybe in a co-executorship. It really depends on how complex your situation is, but making it as easy as possible by documenting and laying things out for the executor so it's easier to implement is key in my mind.
Brad, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I would agree, Gord. You pretty much touched on most of the areas. I just want to reiterate that, the communication piece is so important. Make sure that everyone that's involved knows their role in your legacy planning. So there's no surprises on the other side. It's one of those things that there's no do-over. Once you have this in place and you get to the point where it's being enacted, you don't have another voice. You can't come back. You can't do a rewrite. So make sure that you've done your due diligence and put all of the planning in place, that you're partnered with competent, experienced professionals that are going to ensure that your legacy, that your wishes are carried out as you see fit, and that the people that are impacted by your legacy planning get to enjoy the fruits of your labor.
Really good stuff, guys. Gord, you brought up the executor, and this is something I think a lot of families face. Do you use someone within the family, or do you pull someone from the outside? Obviously a trusted individual, but someone who's at call it arm's length business or arm's length relationship to the family. And I can see the pros and cons to that. Any thoughts from your perspective diving into that? When does it make sense to go outside versus making it one of the kids or as you say, co-executors?
Yeah, I think, I think awareness of the family dynamic is usually my starting point. Even if you've got kids that have a great relationship, money has a habit of doing funny things to people. So, you may want to think long and hard on that. And again, back to what we were saying on communication, if you do decide to set, say, one of your children as the executor, explaining to everyone why, and then putting more strictures around what the executor can or cannot do in order to maintain the fairness for the other beneficiaries is probably really important. Again, we talked about complexity. If my spouse is a business owner and I don't know anything about the business, if I'm the survivor, it's probably not great for me to be named only as the executor to best handle that situation. So, looking for people with expertise, is really key in a more complex situation. I guess the challenge is that, if you're bringing in somebody from the outside, there's a greater chance that you're going to have to pay them maximum compensation, which is usually around 5% of the value of the estate for that time and experience. So you've got to weigh, to some extent, cost versus benefit.
Right.
But, I'm a big believer. It can be challenging, but having a co-executor, to stop any potential fights, to have a voice of reason, I think can be really valuable, especially if there's some contentious situations.
Brad, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm, when clients are contemplating which of their children to name as their executor, I usually tell them to choose the one they like the least.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's a big responsibility, for someone to take on that role of executorship. And now there's a financial, liability that goes along with that. So I think corporate executors are becoming more frequent now than we've seen in the past. Uh, the complexities, aren't just with the client's individual situation. It could be with their tax situation. As Gord said, it could be a business. It could be family dynamics. It could be, that somebody in the family is disabled and they're setting up special trusts for that dependent. So, when you're thinking of an executor, you think, well, the job's a year, maybe two at the most. But in some cases, they're named as the executor and trustees, and in those situations, it could be for many, many years. And so I think, there's lots of different considerations when you're considering who to involve. And there are times when it makes sense to name a corporate executor. And the fees are the same, regardless of, if I'm the executor for my sister, I might decide to waive those fees, but unless her will says otherwise, I can charge the same 2.5% on assets in the estate and 2.5% on the assets going out of the estate. And I'm not a professional corporate executor, but I can charge those same fees. And some people think that that's right or wrong. But the executor is taking time off of work. They're meeting with your planners. They're going to your bank. They're dealing with the MTO, the ministries. So it is costing them, to be in that role. And so I think it's only fair to compensate them, for the time that they're spending and their cost.
Really good points. I mean, I think, coming back to making this easy, the communication is key, and back to the family dynamics. And I think about, when you're sitting down with your kids, some families are wonderful when it comes to financial situations and they open the whole kimono. Everything's all on the table. And other families, a lot more reserved in terms of, how much have they shared in the past? And is that going to be an uncomfortable conversation? And, anyway, guys, really, really good points on that front. So we've touched, on several of the episodes in terms of structures. Anything you guys want to highlight again in terms of structures that can be used to ease things here? Brad?
There can be lots of structures. There can be, various trusts can be used. People may set up holding companies, to hold some of their assets. There are insurance strategies that can be utilized to maximize the estate or minimize the tax in the estate. You might have a buy-seller shareholders agreement, if you have a business, with business partnerships. There may be charitable foundations. We have a number of clients who, want to leave a lasting legacy to either a church or a charity. And rather than just giving that organization a lump sum, they'll partner with a foundation who specializes, in this area, where they can set up the structure so that the income from their donation is paid out to that organization each and every year to assist them with their ongoing costs and expenses. And so there's lots of different structures that can be utilized depending on what the goals are for the person creating the legacy.
Let's shift gears and talk about the who. Who should be involved and when? Gord, why don't you start in terms of who should be involved in terms of, again, on the execution front and the planning front?
Yeah, I think, it all starts with planning, Mike. Ideally we would like to see both of the spouses, and decision makers involved in going through the financial plan process so that we can evaluate some of the things that Brad was just saying. Do trusts make sense? Is the insurance situation set up properly? What happens when the owner of a business or a shareholder in the business passes away? Is everything well protected there? You could have the best executor in the world, but if things aren't structured properly from a planning standpoint, it doesn't matter. Things will go wrong. But, we want to make sure that we're tying in the accountant. And I think really once you've got accountant, planner, advisor / insurance representative, all at the table looking at the financial plan and modeling and determining what's best. You get the course set and then you can bring the lawyer in. Sometimes we see the lawyer get brought in first and a lot of the work being done on the will in advance of the detail that's needed to really craft the will properly. So, you're really keen. It makes sense. Yes, I need a lawyer. I'm not going to use a will kit even if I have a simple estate. I need that expertise. It's a lawyer we go to. But sometimes it gets done in isolation where they only deal with the lawyer and all the front end work that should be done hasn't been done.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. And I think, at that stage, in the planning stage, you will also include, if you have a business, you'll include your business advisor. You might include your spiritual leader. If you're having conversations about values and leaving those as a legacy. And of course, the legacy recipients, I'll tell a quick story at a client many years ago. There was a tragic death in the family, and it was a very, very tight family. And, there was no planning, done. I had inherited the client, and shortly after I inherited them, they passed away. So we didn't have an opportunity to do any planning. The previous advisor didn't do any planning. So there really was the legacy that was left behind was disruption and family discord. There was a simple item that the parents left behind, and two of the children that were remaining, who were adults by then, wanted that same item. And it tore the family apart. And it was such a simple little thing. It was nothing of financial value, but it had meaning to the youngest son and the oldest son. And the family got torn into two camps. And that was more than 30 years ago, and that family has never come back together again, which was a very sad situation. So regardless of whether you plan to leave a legacy or not, you will leave a legacy. It just may not be the one that you intend. Yeah. And so to do that legwork up front, have the conversations, involve, the recipients in those conversations, and iron those things out while you still can, while you're here to have an impact, to be able to share your reasoning for why you're doing what you're doing.
So let's talk about, it's complex, lots of documents, lots of information, and for an executor and for all the players involved, what's the best approach here to organize the information and then to share it?
I think from my standpoint, Mike, this is something we all struggle with. Even the best filing system in the world is designed by you. And if you're not there to walk somebody else through it may be a challenge. And, having a family of my own with kids that are now in their 20s who eventually will become executors of our estate, it really hit home for me that we needed to do something more. And I know we've talked about this organizationally as well. And one of the things that we felt was everybody is going to struggle with this problem. Let's find a solution that will work for everyone. And we have been testing, and it's going to be launched to our clients soon, a product that we're calling EstateKeeper, which is powered by our estate planning partner, Side Drawer. And I've been testing it, and it really provides for me what I felt was missing. If something happened to me and my wife is the executor, I'm pretty sure she could find everything that she needed in our filing cabinet. The kids, maybe not so much. So what EstateKeeper does, it allows you to pull all of your documentation together. It can be all the boring, dry, necessary things like your wills, your power of attorney, investment statements, your financial plan, your insurance policies, your tax returns, all that factual stuff. But it also provides your executor with a link to all of the important professionals that you have. So who is the financial planner? Who is the insurance agent? Who is the accountant? So that when the time comes, your executor can step in and reach out to all these people. It's also on the personal side. You can leave messages, you can leave direction that's maybe outside of your will, which is more that touchy-feely stuff about personal things that you want to gift, messages you want to pass on to your children. And then you can allow different professionals and different people in your life different access to these pieces under one secure website. And we talked earlier about how it can be really complex and time consuming to work through this. Gathering all of this information up is also time consuming, but you're going to need it for the financial plan. You're going to need it for developing the estate plan and making sure things are tax efficient for you. So once you've got it all gathered up, pulling it into one spot and then deciding who needs access to what parts of it and when allows you that comfort of knowing that regardless of what happens, if I step off the curb tomorrow, everything is in place, everything will be easily obtainable, and makes it, during a very difficult time, as smooth as possible for the estate to be handled.
Brad, any thoughts on the need for a tool like this?
Yeah, I mean, Gord, I think you touched on it. It can be as simple as having a filing drawer dedicated to this. There are numerous planning guides that you can pull off the internet, different tools that you can use. What I love about EstateKeeper is it gives you the opportunity to update those documents easily, to share the documents with those that you need to share them with when you want to do it. You can edit the information that's in there easily. If you take a filing cabinet, if you get all this information and you start adding more information to it, you may not remove the old will that's still in there, and now there's two wills in here, and maybe one's conflicting against the other one, which can cause controversies when you get to that stage. So I think a tool like EstateKeeper is golden for clients looking to make the transition easier for their family and their loved ones and their business partners and the people that are receiving the legacy from clients. I think it's a great tool. I'm going through the process myself right now so that I learn from a client perspective how it works. And so far that part of it has been pretty easy. The hard part, as you said, Gord, is collecting all the information to put in. And the nice thing is once it's there, I have it. It's all in digital format, and I can update it. I can share it. I can, pass it along to whomever I need. So I think it's a great tool. It does take a bit of work, but, you don't build a house in a day, and you don't build a legacy in a day either. They all take time and energy and effort. So I think, the return is going to be significant, for those who engage in it and spend the time and invest their time and energy in collecting all of the information to ensure their legacy is carried out the way that they'd like it to, and with the least amount of stress for those involved.
Really good points, guys. And I know folks who are listening, maybe it sounds like a shameless plug, but it's not. This is a great tool. We're very excited to be rolling it out. And one thing we want to stress is it's no cost. This is something that, for being a client with TriCert and with our partner accounting firms, this is going to be provided at no cost to the client. It's just something we saw the need for, and so we're very excited to be executing on that. Brad, Gord, thank you so much for this.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Folks, if you have any questions about what you heard today, don't hesitate to reach out to your CPA firm financial advisor, talk to your portfolio manager at TriCert Investment Counsel, or don't hesitate to reach out to myself. Take care.